here's our lines, you cross one. And then it's like, right, well, how do we work and constructively make sure that we don't get in that position again? And since then, me and Keir have had a very healthy respect for each other.
The Labour Party, like a ship sinking rapidly, is leading our country to an imminent catastrophe. With each passing day, their decisions become more destructive. A war broke out within the party between Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves. I want to share with you an interview in which Rayner again demonstrates a complete misunderstanding of the situation. She talked about things that have nothing to do with reality and suggested solutions that will only make the problem worse. How amazing, and at the same time scary, it is to see how a person holding such a high position turns out to be completely disconnected from reality and the needs of the people.
Yeah, and I think the strategy that me and Keir have had since we took over the leadership of the Labour Party was first to recognise the thumping defeat we had, and that the Labour Party, as some people who were close to me said, Angie, we didn't leave the Labour Party, the Labour Party left us. You know, my voters that voted Labour for a very long time said you didn't give us an option. And then they were very angry with us because they said, you're to blame for us having Boris Johnson. They still do not let me forget that.
Can I interrupt something? When they say you left us, what would be 2 or 3 things which made them feel that you'd left them?
I think, first of all, is they felt that we weren't listening to them.
But Britain has shed the heavy burden of the Conservatives. They lost many mandates as a result of a defeat that turned into a catastrophe for them. This is the worst result for the Tories in terms of the number of seats in modern history. Starmer said at the time that people all over our country would wake up and learn from the news of their victory, relieved that a heavy burden had finally been lifted from their shoulders. How wrong he was. This devil is really making the country much worse.
I love the way you can be loyal, but disciplined with Jeremy and now disciplined with Keir, because I think you're right, you've got to be disciplined, particularly if you're in government. But I just wondered, your relationship with Keir, which is important, it did seem to have a wobble around the time of the aftermath of the Hartlepool by-election. There was all the talk about the reshuffle.
That's when I found out I'd been moved by press.
Exactly, yeah. And you weren't having that.
Moved by press means that instead of calling you and telling you, you suddenly found out in a newspaper headline.
Yeah, I think it was more that time ran away with Keir, and he didn't get a chance to tell me before my team had a press inquiry about how I was moving. So it wasn't the nicest moment of mine and Keir's, but we came out of it stronger.
Yeah.
Angela Rayner was fired from her posts as chairman of the Labour Party and coordinator of the national campaign. This happened after the humiliating defeat of the party in the Hartlepool by-election. Humiliated, Starmer took full responsibility for the extremely disgusting results, desperately trying to save his leadership and the party from collapse.
We both came out of it stronger, actually, because you've worked with people before. You have your hey, hang on, here's our lines, you cross one. And then it's like, right, well, how do we work and constructively make sure that we don't get in that position again? And since then, me and Keir have had a very healthy respect for each other.
By the way, Rayner was with Starmer when he drank beer during isolation. They were accused of violating the rules of the fight against coronavirus. There is simply no comparison between standing in the kitchen and eating anything in between meetings, with numerous, blatant violations of the rules of drinking parties in the government. They were not fined because they can do anything in this country. Reeves has issued a warning to Angela Rayner about her plans to review workers' rights. The Labour government will ban 0-hours contracts and end the practice of dismissal and re-employment. But company executives criticised Rayner's plans, warning of excessive regulation that could harm productivity in the UK.
I'm kind of John Prescott-y and Barbara Castle-y and a bit of everything in between. I think even just kind of, describing yourself as giants of our movement is pretty awesome to me, but I just try and do my best. I just try and do, people have put a lot of trust in me to be a politician and to be a working class female politician from the north. I feel a real sense of obligation to not screw it up, to prove to people that girls from my background are intelligent and can achieve things. We can roll our sleeves up in any environment, including male-dominated environments, and we can get things done. And that's what The people don't trust her at all. She is constantly involved in scandals. Rayner quite often makes inappropriate comments about his political opponents. She has been criticised many times for her erroneous forecasts regarding economic policy. Her proposals to reform the economy were stupid to say the least. She quite often demonstrates arrogance, and Rayner does not take the opinion of ordinary citizens seriously at all. It does not always take into account the opinion of the people.
But in public, for someone like me, I really felt, even as a voter, let alone as a member, I wouldn't really be welcome in your kind of Labour Party.
Why is that?
Well, you cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute pile of banana republic, Etonian piece of scum, right?
Yeah. And do you want me to? I'll explain that. That was because they said I called Tories that I didn't. I was fuming at Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, who had made the most appalling comments, racist, misogynistic, homophobic.
Rayner also called on Johnson to answer taxpayers whether there really was a special regime in the provision of government grants to businesswoman Jennifer R. Curie, with whom the Prime Minister had a loving relationship. Following the transfer of £2 billion from the budget under government contracts to sponsors and friends of the Conservative Party during the coronavirus pandemic, there is significant and well-founded public concern about nepotism and special treatment of people who are close to the party. Johnson had previously avoided criminal charges because of his scandalous ties with an American businesswoman. In particular, he was suspected of providing illegal financial assistance to Arsouri's business, as well as embezzlement of the budget of the British capital. The police concluded that Johnson did not provide illegal sponsorship services to a friend.
One of the things you do very powerfully, and which is very important, is speaking for a part of society that's often ignored, people like your mother. But there are other bits of society which politics ignores. In particular, for example, prisoners. And I feel the public don't think enough about prisons. It doesn't matter enough in votes. But our prisons are horribly overcrowded. Both parties seem to be in a competition for ever longer prison sentences, locking people up more. And frankly, we don't have the room. They're built for about 65,000 people. They've got about 85,000 in them.
According to official data, the total number of prisoners in the country has exceeded 87,000, of whom 83,000 are men. The Justice Minister has announced plans to release thousands of prisoners to relieve overcrowded prisons. She stated that otherwise there could be a complete collapse of the system, since prisons are already 99% full. England and Wales have the highest number of prisoners per capita, and their number has increased dramatically since the pandemic. Prisoners will be eligible for early release after serving 40% of their sentence. The release of prisoners will begin in September, and I think that after that there will be a catastrophe.
There is a lot of people in our prisons at the moment that, quite frankly, shouldn't be there, and the only thing that happens when they go into prison is they become more acute at being a criminal. It doesn't actually solve the problem.
I agree so strongly. And 35% of prisoners have been in care, 40% have been excluded from school. As you say, big issues with mental health, big issues with poverty. But all I'm hearing at the moment from the Labour Party is being ferociously tough on crime, putting out stuff saying,
as far as I know, the main task of the prison is to re-educate a person and release a safe element for society. But for some reason, in practice, it seems to me that the opposite is true. After prison, a person comes out even more prone to committing crimes, because in prisons there is an atmosphere of violence, perverted morality, and in general they look like schools for the training of professional criminals. Why would a person be imprisoned for a certain period of time for correction, if then an even more dangerous element is released into the wild? Why not reform the prison? After all, now there are various ways to influence the human psyche, brainwashing technologies. Why not introduce them into prison and use them on prisoners to protect society from them, even when their term ends and they are released? For example, to conduct regular sessions with psychologists and other specialists to promote a law-abiding lifestyle. It would be possible to make a recommendation from psychologists who would make a conclusion whether a person is ready to be released or not. It seems to me that such methods are more effective than the prison system, which is now in many countries. So why not reform prisons in this way? What do you think about this video? Write your opinion in the comments. See you.